Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very special segment today. A bit late because there's been so much that's been happening out there in the community. And we have so much to report on. There's so much that's been happening out in the weekend as well. But right now, a point to note is that once again, there have been some reports on some cases. We will look at all of those in great details in a minute. But right now, let's take a look at where can you get vaccinated in Queensland. So how to get vaccinated? Here's the QR codes. Just jump on there and do that. This will be on Queensland Health, Queensland Government and all the sites. So this is very, very important that you do this. Right now, let's watch a short video on vaccination.
I'm sure by now you've heard a lot about COVID-19. But what about the vaccine? We've used vaccines for over 100 years as a way of fighting the very worst diseases. This is the largest pandemic event the world has seen since 1918. That means we have a lot of people who need a vaccine. Remember that having a COVID-19 vaccine is your choice. It's free, safe, and the best way to protect yourself and your loved ones from serious illness or death from the virus. But remember, if we want to get back to doing the things we love most with little to no restrictions, then we need 70 to 90% of our community vaccinated. All Queenslanders will have the opportunity to receive the vaccine this year. Eligible people can register their interest online to receive a COVID-19 vaccine at a Queensland Health location. Alternatively, you can check the Australian Government Eligibility Checker to see if there's an available appointment with a general practitioner or community health service near you. Thank you for rolling up your sleeve and doing your part to help keep Queenslanders COVID safe.
Roll up your sleeves and do your part. Do what's right for Queensland. Right now, let's take a look at all the reports in Queensland, and let's just see what's happening and the announcement by our Premier.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, so today we have 2 new local community cases and 2 overseas acquired. Now, we're not concerned about the 2 new local community cases because they are students from Sir Thomas More. They're linked to that Sunnybank cluster, but they have been in their home isolation. But Dr Young will go through a little bit more details there, but we consider them at this stage to be low risk. We have 2 from in hotel quarantine from overseas, but can I just give a very clear message to the 1,000 families from Sir Thomas More that are actually doing home quarantine at the moment for 14 days. We are thanking you for doing the right thing for Queensland. We saw how well it worked in the Indooroopilly cluster when everyone did the right thing. Now we're asking every one of those families, because as we're seeing, we are seeing a few cases pop up from that cluster, but they are in their home quarantine. So that's a really big shout out to those families. So please continue to do the right thing because you're helping Queensland. Okay, so we now have in the tests, we had some good testing numbers overnight as well, 14,506 tests. And yesterday, Queensland Health did 15,378 vaccines, which is fantastic. So we now have 56.39% of eligible Queenslanders with their first dose and 38.08% are fully vaccinated. And of course today the vaccination program for 12 to 15-year-olds opens up, which is absolutely wonderful news, and I know that there's a lot of students out there that are looking forward as well to getting their vaccine. So it's a bit of families are going out and getting it together, which is great to see. In a good record as well, last week Queensland Health did 146,182 vaccines, which is excellent. Boondall, which we opened up, delivered 7,095 in the first week, including 1,500 yesterday. So I want to thank everyone for coming out and getting their vaccines. We were down at Mount Warren Park the other day. They have delivered 894 since Friday, and they did 593 yesterday. And we also had that trial of the pop-up clinic for the NRL at Rocky, we had 129 people who got vaccinated and 492 at their normal vaccination centre, so that's wonderful to hear. I can also announce that we'll do it again in Mackay this weekend. So we've got some footy happening up there, and there'll be pop-up vaccination clinics there as well. And the Health Minister will give more information, but we're also opening a new vaccination centre today in Toowoomba. So as you can see, as we get more supply in from the federal government, we're able to open up more vaccination centres. And once again, can I encourage Queenslanders, now is the time to get your vaccine. Remember I said we've got this really clear window of opportunity at the moment. While we don't have a big Delta spread in Queensland, go and get vaccinated. Every single person who's getting vaccinated is helping out Queensland. The State Disaster Coordinator will give an update about the border bubble, but we're happy with how that's going at the moment as well. So, of course, a lot more people will be able to come into Queensland and vice versa to do their essential work as long as they've had their vaccines, and of course schools can go back there as well. So with those few words, I think I'll hand over to Dr Young. Thanks.
Thank you, Premier. Yes, so 2 new locally acquired cases, and both of those are students at St Thomas More College, and were both in home quarantine. One of them did have a short period of time infectious in the community before they went into quarantine, so there are some additional exposure venues that are up on the website. But I'm fairly confident that that cluster is in hand because of the fantastic work done by the Metro South Hospital and Health Service Public Health Unit, getting all of those children into quarantine, and the response of the school and those 1,000 families. That's been excellent. And as a result of all of that great work, that I'm confident enough that I think we don't need those ongoing restrictions for aged care, disability care, hospitals and prisons, so they'll be able to immediately return to their normal practices. They don't need to have those additional visitor restrictions that were put in place late last week because of that evolving cluster. So that's all working well. Now, we do still have some concerns about the numbers of freight drivers who've been infectious in our community, so there are quite a list of exposure venues that I'd really like anyone who lives in Brisbane or in Logan to really have a look at and make sure that you haven't been to any of those exposure venues at those times. And also, anyone who lives in Brisbane or in Logan, please, if you have any symptoms at all, as this family did, please just come out and get tested as quickly as possible. And we saw a lot of people doing that yesterday, so thank you very much. If we can find people very early on in an outbreak, it means we can immediately respond, as we've done with this most recent cluster, so we don't have to have restrictions continuing going forward. But it's a matter of finding those cases early. Then the other thing we can all do is we're hearing from the Commonwealth that more supply of vaccine is coming into Australia, so it's really important that we avail ourselves of that. So please, anyone 12 years through to 59 years of age, come and get Pfizer or very soon Moderna as soon as possible. And others, so people 60 years or over, please check with your GP or your local pharmacy and just make sure that everyone takes up the opportunity to be vaccinated. We're getting more and more supplies rolling out. Thank you.
Well, that is great news that we have seen some containment of this virus out of the Sunnybank cluster. And as we expect, we're now seeing some positive cases out of the school, but of course they're already in home quarantine. So big shout out to the 1,000 students and families that are quarantining. We know that by you doing the right thing, it keeps our community safe and it stops transmission spreading. So we ask people to keep an eye out on the website for any exposure sites. These 2 young students were out in the community for 1 or 2 days while still infectious. And of course we're seeing more and more cases of New South Wales freight drivers coming into the state and leaving, and then us becoming aware that they were infectious while they were here. So although they don't count in Queensland's numbers, we will, as New South Wales provides us with the information, be putting up exposure sites on the Queensland website. So we do ask people to continually check that. The great news is, because Dr Young is very comfortable with the risk level in relation to this latest cluster, we can announce today that we will lift the restrictions on visiting hospitals, aged care, disabilities and correctional facilities immediately. So those Logan, LGA areas and Brisbane City Council south side, we will open them back up today so people can visit their loved ones. We know it was difficult over the weekend to not be able to visit, but we needed to make sure that we didn't have this virus moving around the community. So we thank everyone for their patience over the weekend and not being able to visit loved ones. I want to give a big shout out to Metro South Hospital and Health Service, particularly for the great work they did in testing over the weekend and also vaccinations. And of course, huge shout out across the state to all of our vaccination hubs to do a record number of 146,182 over 7 days is amazing. So as we said all along, as we get more supply, we will get more vaccine into arms, and that's exactly what we're doing. Week after week, we are seeing record numbers of vaccinations now in Queensland. I can report today that at Toowoomba, there'll be a new community-based vaccination hub opening at the Clifford Gardens Shopping Centre. So this will replace our small facility at the Bailey Henderson. And this is what we're seeing us moving to across the state, moving out of our small facilities in our hospitals to larger community-based facilities that we know, as more supply comes in, we can expand rapidly to take many more vaccination numbers. And we've seen that Cairns, of course, at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre with Boondall, and we'll keep seeing this, and of course our Toowoomba facility. So within a fortnight, that Toowoomba new vaccination hub will start operating 7 days a week. So that is fantastic because we know that's what the community wants. They want to be able to access any day of the week, particularly weekends, and that's what they'll have at Toowoomba. So anyone out Toowoomba, please make sure you come out to our new vaccination site and get vaccinated as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner.
Thank you, Premier. Our new system went live last night for the border zones, particularly around the Tweed, where we know we have numbers of people wanting to come across. So that successfully went live last night. And even though we saw 4,917 vehicles processed yesterday and 96 turned around, we expect those numbers to increase. I'm pleased to say that as of 7 a.m. this morning, there was only a 9-minute delay on the M1 and less than 5-minute delays everywhere else. And the most recent check tells me that those delays remain minimal. But the message is still there for people, can expect delays at times, so depending on when they cross, expect to do that. We have seen some turnarounds, and this is primarily people that are coming to work who have not had at least one vaccination. Please, under the directions that we're having in our border zone, that people need to understand that should they come across, they have to meet the requirements to be able to enter Queensland, even with the border pass. So they are required to have that if they're coming across for work purposes. Otherwise, if they're coming across, they must have an essential purpose. Please, if they're not sure about that, check with the Queensland Health website or seek advice on that through Health. Overall, yesterday we saw 173 people quarantined in our domestic hotel quarantine. 95 of those were relocating to Queensland and 41 were returning Queenslanders. Low levels of enforcement yesterday, so thank you to everyone. Only one pin for someone failing to wear a mask in a shopping centre. No arrests. And 75 businesses checked and no breaches at all for those people. And we handed out 24 masks. So overall, compliance is very good and we thank you for that. Thank you.
Live report coming from Queensland Parliament House, and now the question time with the Premier.
We're a lot more comfortable, so I think Queenslanders, of course, especially in the southeast, very concerned about whether or not we are. As I said the other day, we would be looking to see if there was any seeding that happened outside that home quarantine. So fingers crossed, it's all looking good at the moment.
Premier, does there need to be tighter rules around frameworks? I know that there's national frameworks and very good. What's your view?
Yeah, no, National Cabinet has delegated that to the Transport Ministers to have a look at. My understanding is that they're required to be tested every 3 days. The problem with testing every truck driver that comes into the state is we have thousands, and you can imagine then the traffic jams that we would have. But I think we do need to have a good conversation with people about encouraging those freight drivers to get vaccinated.
What about rapid testing for truck drivers?
Look, I think they're looking at all options, but even then, it's hard to work out how that would be administered. Look, I just think let's keep all options on the table, and it is a priority that these freight drivers are going right across Australia.
There are 3 people who entered the state. Can you tell us what exemptions they had?
I think police will have that. So if there's any other questions for me, and then I'll hand over to police.
Premier, we've just had some really heartbreaking stories on the border this morning. A Queensland man actually collapsed. He's okay. His name's Ron Fenwick. But he went to New South Wales for heart surgery, and he's been trying to get back into Queensland.
I'm not aware, Marlena, of those issues. So, look, the exemptions unit will work through those. I don't have that up-to-date information.
Could there be more resources for the exemptions unit, or maybe...
We addressed that the other day. We are increasing the exemptions unit, so that is getting more resources. So that was actually asked the other day.
What about a liaison person on the border or something like that? Because a lot of people going to the border with 2 police with their problems, and they're obviously going through a lot of heartbreak about trying to get back in.
Yeah, well, there's the people who work in the Department of Health can actually talk to people, so that's not an issue. They can talk to them.
Yeah, quarantine. Last week you said there was like 600 rooms freed up, but Steve was saying there's 173 people in domestic quarantine. How many?
No, that's how many who came in yesterday.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So what the Deputy Commissioner gave you was just how many came in yesterday into Queensland.
So how many more rooms do you expect to be freed up this week?
Oh, I don't have that information. We can get that to yeah.
We know the Logan vaccination hub opened, and there's
Yep.
a few things like that happening in Logan. Are you still concerned about their low vaccination rate in Logan, and do you think that'll be enough to lift it?
Look, there's more and more people getting vaccinated, which is wonderful, so I think the message is getting out there. Like I said, we've had meetings as well with the leaders of the multicultural communities, and they're working with us as well, encouraging people. I think, people like the walk-in, so I think we need to look at how we can facilitate more of that to encourage people to come and get vaccinated.
And also, with people, say, coming out, there's a story about a man from Childers who went to bury his son down in New South Wales. He tried to drive back over the border, but was told he had to fly back. We're hearing that a bit now. Is there a reason why people have to fly back and can't drive back over the border?
It's because of the risk, okay? So as we know, and I'm quite sure Dr Young can expand on this, there is a lot of virus in New South Wales. I mean, you only have to look at the tens of thousands, we're over 30,000 cases at the moment, and there is a lot of virus in New South Wales, and we are very concerned that can come back into Queensland. So you've even seen, like with the freight drivers, we're picking that up. Well, New South Wales is picking up in the first instance because they're getting tested every 3 days. I think there's a lot more virus in New South Wales, but they can't cope with the testing.
Just get better funds the voluntary to Diana Laws.
Yep.
Is there a final message for MPs?
Look, it's a conscience vote for members of my government. I once again urge everyone to be respectful in their debate. It's a deeply personal issue for a lot of people, and I do know that there are a lot of people out there that support this. And can I guarantee to Queenslanders, it has been through a very thorough process. It has gone through a very big consultative process right across Queensland. Not only that, the Law Reform Commission has done an excellent job in producing that bill that we introduced into Parliament. So this week we will be debating that bill. It is, of course, groundbreaking, and once again I urge everyone to be very respectful in the debate and also in the public commentary as well.
When will we know if Cabinet has made any changes to that legislation?
When will you know? Well, we'll be debating it this week.
But when will, so MPs can have a chance to look over?
Yep, well, I've got a caucus meeting this afternoon.
So this afternoon we'll see those changes?
Well, you might not hear about it this afternoon, but you'll hear about it when I'm ready to tell you about it.
Just on the under-12, so you obviously raised concerns recently about...
Yes, I did, yes.
There are some reports about rolling out
yes.
jabs for primary schools.
Yes, yeah.
Do you know about that?
Well, what I say is that it's good to see that the federal Health Minister has finally caught up on the international research and the trials that are being conducted. This is exactly what I raised a few weeks ago. This was why I was attacked, and I think it's good to see now that the Federal Health Minister has caught up with that international research.
So just to clarify, kids 12 to 15-year-olds at Queensland Health Clubs today, is it still that priority group?
Sorry?
Is it all 12 to 15-year-olds? There's a bit of confusion with parents. You can go to a Queensland Health Club and book in.
Yeah, you can book in, yep, 12 to 15, and they can go to their GPs as well and pharmacies as well.
Anyone 12 to 15.
So there you are, that's the latest news there, that there's 2 new cases, but they are contained and clusters are known. The area of concern is the truck drivers, and as the Premier mentioned, that they can't stop the trucks from coming because they need to get the goods to everyone so that there is no shortage, but they need to keep an eye on them and make sure that they get vaccinated ASAP. And there's a lot more vaccination available now, so all the states are trying to catch up on that. Well, right now here locally, there's been lots happening, meaning, the police community meeting has been postponed for now after this announcement of the 2 cases. I know there's some other meetings which are now going on to be on the Zoom platform or virtual platforms rather than meeting in person. It's not that it's a directive, it's just a precautionary measure that the organisers are taking in a very responsible manner. So that's the call of the time, that whatever we do, we need to do it with responsibility, we're keeping everything in mind, also being mindful of people who might be attending and where they have been from, and maybe if one was exposed, that the whole lot of yous will have to go into that home quarantine. So, rather than being stuck away, cut off from your work and colleagues and everything, it's better to have that precautionary measure, as has been said. So, all ladies, right now, so moving on, let's go to New South Wales and take a look at what's happening there.
Look, we've not yet put out our plans for 80%. We're still formalising them. We've not received health input. We've not yet determined those plans. Obviously, the national plan is a guide to what can happen at 80% double dose, and that is always our guide as well. But we want to be clear that there'll always be things, and not just because of government decision, but it might be, government might say it's up to business to decide whether or not they accept unvaccinated patrons, or government might decide what freedoms can exist for people, but we've not come to those conclusions yet. So I don't want people to think they can sit back and let everybody else do the hard work. And if people are concerned, if people are worried about getting vaccinated, as we've said, please contact your GP, please speak to your local pharmacist or a healthcare professional. But we all have choices, and if it's your choice not to be vaccinated, well, that might mean you cannot participate in things that fully vaccinated people do.
Well, of course, if that's your choice, you cannot do things that fully vaccinated people can do. That might be the incentive which is required to get people to go get vaccinated. And yes, Chandranarajan, he's mentioning, please, everyone, do get vaccinated. Right now, let's go to Victoria, where a little, the minister there, he looks a bit concerned as he delivers this report.
473 cases in yesterday's figures. That makes now 3,507 active cases of coronavirus in the state. 3,503 of those are locally acquired. We have 157 Victorians currently in hospital with COVID. 38 of those are in intensive care, and 26 of those are on a ventilator. And of course, we send our very best wishes to everybody who's recovering from COVID in our state at this point in time. Like recent days, like in fact the last 2 weeks, 91% of the last 24 hours cases are all in our northern and western suburbs. We have 338 cases in our northern suburbs, in key suburbs such as Craigieburn, Roxburgh Park, Meadow Heights, Broadmeadows and Glenroy. In our western suburbs, we have 97 cases in suburbs such as Truganina, Altona North and Tarneit. And in our southeastern suburbs, we have 23 cases in Casey, Cardinia, Dandenong, Berwick and Clayton. And there are 9 cases in our eastern suburbs, including Doncaster East and Ferntree Gully. Of the 6 cases in regional areas, 3 are from Mildura and are all primary close contacts of the existing case we discussed a few days ago, and 3 are in Geelong, again all known primary close contacts of 2 existing cases. Again, no new exposure sites to report on any of those, which is encouraging. That makes our total of 473 cases in the last 24 hours. Of the particular exposure sites of interest and concern, we continue to obviously focus on the Box Hill construction site. Now 120 active cases in total. That's now starting its day 13 testing today. Obviously, we're very keen to try and get to the end of that particular cluster. In addition, recently we've discussed the Fitzroy Community School. There are now 31 positive cases associated with the school. There are 189 primary close contacts, and we'll of course be continuing to support the school community to test and to isolate over the days ahead. We have 1 further case at V-Line. That now takes us to 5 positive staff cases in total with V-Line. The latest case acquired the infection, we believe, in their tea room. A lot of work happening over the last 2 or 3 days with V-Line as we work to identify which of their drivers and staff are associated as Tier 1 exposures and which ones are Tier 2. My thanks to the whole V-Line team for working through those details, and of course still challenging times ahead as we work through the details of that. We have 1 positive case at a Ballarat residential disability site. This is somebody who resides in Metro Melbourne but works at the Ballarat facility. They were infectious on the 9th and 10th September when they worked an overnight shift. There are 10 primary close contacts, but I'm pleased to confirm that of the 4 residents there, 3 have been vaccinated, and we'll obviously hope to get those test results over the course of today. And finally, at the Ascot Vale public housing site, we have no new cases today, 6 cases in total across 4 different households, and a number of those households have moved into alternative accommodation.
Of those cases have moved into the alternative houses as has been reported. Well, right now let's take a look at what's happening in our Indigenous community with this vaccination, because we have already looked at Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria.
Children aged 12 and over will be able to get a COVID-19 vaccine, with the Prime Minister promising everyone who wants a jab will be able to get one by the end of October.
It comes as the government confirmed it has secured an extra 1 billion doses of the Moderna vaccine from EU nations unable to use the jabs before they expire. And the government released a new ad last night encouraging more Australians to get vaccinated.
What will you do first? Dance? Feast? Chop the mop? Go nowhere? Go somewhere? Or say hello? Before we can do the thing we want to do, there's something we all need to do first. Book your COVID-19 vaccination at australia.gov.au.
Not a bad ad. Lieutenant General John Frewen is the Coordinator General of the National COVID-19 Vaccine Task Force. He joins us now from Canberra. General Frewen, good morning to you.
Morning, Michael.
I want to start with some news this morning about the accelerated rollout of vaccines for Indigenous communities in Australia.
Yeah, look, we're working very closely with the states and territories, the Indigenous Health Network and the Indigenous Advisory Council. We've developed a list of 30 areas that we'll be giving priority attention to over the next weeks and months to make sure that we can get their vaccination rates up as high as we can, as quickly as we can.
Okay, because it's been a serious issue, hasn't it, in sadly many Indigenous communities in the country, particularly in Western New South Wales, the relative lack of vaccinations on the ground.
Yeah, well, look, there's hesitancy in many of these communities too, Michael, so that's a really important issue for us. So, again, we're working with community leaders, with church groups and elders, and we've got plans to get, the best information we can out and to get leaders to start encouraging their communities to take up these vaccinations opportunities, because, it's really important for these communities.
Okay, now from today, parents and guardians of 12 to 15-year-olds can make bookings for their children to be vaccinated. Are there enough supplies in the country at the moment to ensure that those bookings will be met with vaccinations sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so look, this is really exciting news. It's great to have access open to 12 to 15-year-olds now. Access will be available for both Pfizer and Moderna from next week, and the Moderna will be coming through the pharmacy network, so we're also excited about that. Two very similar mRNA vaccines. People obviously need to get online, make the bookings. I do ask for just a little bit of patience as we get them settled in over the next couple of weeks, but people should be able to get on and get bookings within a couple of weeks.
Okay, so when do you see we'll reach the point, General Fraun, that there'll be enough vaccines in the country, in state-run hubs, in pharmacies and GP clinics, enough vaccines for everybody over the age of 12 who wants one?
Yep, so from the middle of October, we believe we'll have enough vaccines in the country to fully vaccinate every eligible person in Australia. So really, we're in a period now where we are shifting from any sense of supply constraint. We've got a distribution network now with, we'll be getting close to 10,000 points of presence, be it GPs, pharmacies, state-run hubs and the likes where people can go. So we've got the supply, we think we've got the distribution network. Now it really comes down to people stepping forward, getting booked in and getting vaccinated. And as the ad says, for those people still making up their minds, I mean, there is one thing you've got to do first, and that's get vaccinated before we can hope to get back to all of those other things that we want to do.
Okay, so we've got the ad running. What about the prospect of some form of financial incentive to, especially to get that target above 70%, closer to 80%?
Yeah, so Michael, at the moment, all of the sentiment surveys we've got are really encouraging. More than 80% of people are saying they intend to get vaccinated, and then there's another significant portion of that remainder who are still making up their mind. So, you know, right now we are on a really strong track to get to 70% fully vaccinated, and then I think continue on to 80. But it's about people turning up. It's about people making that decision to get booked in and then to see it through.
Will financial incentives be looked at to help achieve that aim?
Yeah, well, right now I think, as I said, the sentiment is there. People intend to get vaccinated. So what we're seeing that the best motivators are is choice of vaccine, convenience of vaccination, and then the freedoms that will bring. So now that we've got these additional mRNA vaccines coming on, we think choice is there. We've now opened up to nearly every member of the community for all of the available vaccines. Convenience, we're growing the distribution networks. So we'll have 3,500 pharmacies up by the end of the month doing both AstraZeneca and mRNA vaccines. So the convenience is coming, and then, you know, once we get to these 70 and 80% fully vaccinated rates, then there's a plan to get us back to those sorts of freedoms we want to enjoy.
Okay, but if choice and desire aren't enough, especially when we hit 70%, we want to get to 80%, ideally higher, is there the option being considered of some form of financial incentive for Australians?
Oh, look, we'll keep a range of incentive options open, but right now we think people are turning up. People will continue to turn up, so we'll keep monitoring it. The areas of most concern to me right now are those areas of hesitancy. The First Things First ad is designed to help encourage those people to make the choice to get vaccinated, but we'll also be working in the information space to make sure that we're getting the right messaging out and we're contesting incorrect information where we have to.
General Fraun, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 77 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is there well, and don't forget that on Wednesday we have Usha Chandra right here in the studios talking everything real estate, all the updates about auctions, about listings, about the property discounting, number of days on the market, and a lot. So that's on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Well, right now, let's take a look at some of the functions and events taking place in and around Brisbane, and let's see, what's happening in that scenario. First up, we look at India Day Fair, which is now on the 23rd of October. All systems go for that. Mums United Seva on 19th of September, collection and distribution of food items to the needy. And of course, Load Agency are recruiting research participants for 1 hour Zoom. This is for New South Wales residents, and you can win a $150 e-gift voucher from them. Well, talked about event is Sangeet Premi Club's Interfaith Music Festival, which is now taking place on Saturday, the 9th of October. Well, right now we're going to talk about Diwali, and not Diwali, Diwalis. Well, of course, first up, Benio Diwali, which is now taking place on the 30th of October at Benio Grandstand. Next up, we go to Gold Coast. So on Gold Coast, the first Cape of the rank is Hota. Outdoor happening is beautiful, arranged by Equitas and Pavitra Nouri and the team. And this is on Saturday, 16th of October from 1 till 9 p.m. Next up, we talk about a grand night on October the 1st by the university students. So this is another good function event to be part of as the Diwali. And the next Diwali is by Federation of Indian Communities of Queensland on the 5th of November 2001. And next up, go to Gold Coast once again, and on Sunday 10th October at Broadwater Parklands from 4 p.m. till 8 p.m. Gold Coast Diwali Fair, a festival of lights by Gopio Gold Coast. Another wonderful event to be part of. And Sargam Music Academy, they are having their grand musical night, which had been postponed from the original date. Now on 13th of November, tickets are available online to purchase. Ganpati Visarjan at Sri Lakshmi Narayan Temple on the 19th of September. Wow, what tabla playing there. Wish I could play like that. I got carried away with that. And of course, right now we're going to look at some good news. The good news is that this month's Music Junction is taking shape very well, and we have the tracks ready, and we've just got to do a bit of post-production, and of course Sabi will do that live right from here in the studio. So let's take a very quick sneak peek at what it's going to look like.
मैं नीवा मेरा मुर्शद उच्चा ते मैं उच्चियां दे संग लाए सदके जावा ओना उच्चियां दे जिन्हां नीवियां नाल निभाया सांसों की माला पे सांसों की माला पे सांसों की माला पे सिमरू मैं सांसों की माला पे सिमरू मैं ठिकाना सांसों की माला पे सिमरू मैं ठिकाना अपने मन की मैं जानू और भी के मन की ना अपने मन की मैं जानू और भी के मन की ना सांसों की माला पे सिमरू मैं ठिकाना सिमरू मैं ठिकाना सांसों की माला पे सिमरू मैं ठिकाना प्रेम के रंग में सी डूबी प्रेम के रंग में सी डूबी बन गया एक हीरू प्रेम के रंग में सी डूबी बन गया एक हीरू प्रेम की माला जपते जपते आप बनी मैं शाम सांसों की माला पे सिमरू मैं ठिकाना अपने मन की मैं जानू और भी के मन की ना सांसों की माला पे सांसों की माला पे सिमरू मैं ठिकाना सिमरू मैं ठिकाना सिमरू मैं ठिकाना Thank you.
There you are, ladies and gentlemen, something to look forward for. This month's Music Junction will be amazing. There's some very beautiful numbers. There's some very nice Ghulam Ali Khan ji's and Jagjit ji and all those ghazal types of songs. Very, very talented singer Parminder ji. And of course, will be hosted by RJ Sabi. Something to look forward to. I thought I'll just slip in a little glimpse. I couldn't help myself. But until then, it's goodbye from me. Until tomorrow, we'll get an update at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.